All right, this is, what's the date today? Today is April 2nd. I'm glad we're not doing this on April Fools. I am thrilled to have back on the line with me, colleague and artist, Stephen Shellenberger, and he's left the screen. Oh, oh, that was a gentle way of introducing yourself visually. Hello, Shellenberger, a
I
man of
did so.
conscience,
I
back with me. How are you?
I'm good. I just
Are you?
want to let the audience and all my fans out there in Ackerman land, I'd like to let them know that yes, I did have some experience with modeling. So I know how to physically carry
Enter.
myself.
And I want to compliment you on your shirt.
Yeah.
I think it has remnants of California. I feel a California presence.
Yeah,
And
I
you've
don't know
been
where
working on
this
your hair all day as well, I can tell.
I've spent about 14 hours on my hair so far today.
Because we're going to do this.
Yeah. And I knew where this was coming up, so I wanted it to look good. I don't really know though where this shirt came from. It can't sort of appeared in my drawer, but I like it.
Well, it has remnants of some sort of esoteric
Yeah,
quality. I think
I'm not really sure about that because, yeah, I guess someone could look at this and say, oh, it's
secret symbols.
yeah, oh, look at those symbols on his shirt. Well, it's not a conscious decision on my part. Um, we had so many the awful thing about talking to you is that when we talk, it's like we get this genesis of a great idea, but then we stop a recording and then we forget what the genesis was of that great idea. I mean, here's something else. There's been a whole bunch of crap about Gagosian online lately.
Oh, I didn't know that. Tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. He was
Tell me.
apparently involved. He was accused of being involved in some sex trafficking. Um, he's obviously on the inside track with, all his art dealers and art buyers, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
can't get much more inside the game than Gagosian.
Top of the pyramid.
Yeah, for a guy that sold posters originally, like it's really quite phenomenal, isn't
And
it?
it's never enough. The money, like $1 million paintings, just don't bring in enough money, or what?
Yeah, and I think the thing that any artists that watch your show, watch your YouTube channel, they should know that like guys like Gagosian really have such contempt for the artist, and we're just there to be used, right, and make money off of. But I don't think that even when you go back to Greg Curnow's Tilson, the guy that managed or took care of Greg Curnow and those guys
Yeah.
in London, Ontario, right?
Yeah.
And that's small scale. But I think Tilson really, the old guy Tilson, I think he really cared about his artists and wanted to nurture them and bring them along. And in the art world, it's been like that in the past. Now I think it's just, you might as well be working on Wall Street or something. I mean, it's just a great big sham. I don't think they respect the artists. I think they burn the artists out. If the artist commits suicide or die from a drug overdose, that's just bonus. You know what I mean? The
Yes,
price go
especially
up.
if you're 28 or so, right? If you're like in that 28 club, that would probably help as well.
Yeah, like that
Yeah.
Basquiat was absolutely, I think, if they didn't
Hendrix.
if they didn't stick the needle in the guy's arm, they did everything to basically push him off the edge, right? Because it was great. He dies at 28 or 27. Perfect. He's in the 27 club. He's done all this work in Gagosian's basement, which is where I met him and saw him. And just absolutely fantastic. They rack up this enormous amount of artwork in a short period of time. The guy's now dead. And did you know that Basquiat, you know what his stuff auctions off for? It's like 50 million bucks.
I know he's one of the highest auction results guys now. It's
50 million. What kind of life did that guy really get? Like, did he have much joy? Did he have much happiness? Did he have real friends around him? Or was he just surrounded by these sharks that made money off him?
Now I have a split sort of vision of all of this as well. I think there are people that can produce work of significance and interest, and I think Basquiat probably, in my scale of importance, fits into this from the level of, if we want to talk about originality, this is something we were talking about in the last conversation, that in terms of making art, one of the things that has been, from my perspective, ignored is that the thing that really makes something of value and significant to another person, if it can transmit something of ultimate value to us, right? Is that restricted to a brilliance of technique, or I don't know, whatever you want to, whatever standard or platform you might want to talk about? Basquiat, which had happened before, people were producing work that looked like what that thing, my kid could do it kind of thing, right? That sort of attitude people have, that it's not really valuable to me if I think my child could do it, which is a real put down on the child, obviously. I mean, people don't understand that when they say that to me in my studio. Hey, my kid could have done that, to try and ridicule me, but they're really disparaging their own children in that comment. But the point about Basquiat for me is that he appears to me to have attempted to instill something in the work that superseded all standards, but conferred on us some fundamental level that is important. Like, for example, I mean, he was very political, and I think he was a human rights activist on behalf of his own, I don't know, his own race there, the black community. But
Yeah, and his mother was locked up in a mental hospital.
no kid, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But
He go visit his mom in the mental hospital. I mean, he wasn't coming from like some bland, sterile, place.
point
He
is,
was
he
coming.
cared. I think he actually cared, you know?
I do too.
I believe he actually cared, and they took that, and I mean, they killed him somehow, but because you cannot care and continue to live. I think you're very aware of this. As soon as you begin to care, which is a very rare phenomenon in the human race right now. So if you care, Stephen, for me, you're original. You see, when I say originality, right?
Yeah, the phone rings, right?
Why is that?
Hello, Tony's Pizza.
Oh, it's not the tax revenue people. So when we left off, I didn't want
My
people to
friend from
think,
Alabama.
what?
It's my friend from Alabama.
Oh, yeah? You have friends other than me?
She actually cares
You,
about me. She thinks of me as her like surrogate brother.
yeah? Is she going to watch this?
Oh yeah, she watches all of our videos.
Okay. So my point to you, to just round off the conversation I didn't get to touch on with you, was that when you produce something of value to another person in terms of an artwork, if it doesn't have that element of care in it, not just, oh, I make something and it's so brilliant, fabulous. If it doesn't transmit this level of commitment to what makes us us, right? That feeling in the work somewhere, not just some idiosyncrasy of shit on the floor or
I
whatever.
get, I get you, Tom.
Okay,
I
so
know.
you see, like, you make paintings, and you make paintings that would be considered to be, I would say, on the intuitive, impulsive side of things, rather than planning something for 5 weeks, and then like a Bateman or Andrew Wyeth, or something where people say, oh boy, that guy really spent a lot of time figuring this out and making it look a certain
No,
way,
I
right?
don't do anything like that. I don't do films like that. I don't do anything like
It's
that.
intuitive, but it has an element that connects you to the work in terms of the fact that you care about something, that you really honestly care about something, which is
Yeah, but
missing.
my
Gagosian.
excuse, well, my rationale on that is that um, this is just my take on it. Like, I think I'm very smart. I think I'm very intuitive when it comes to that intuition stuff. As far as being a strategist and a planner and all those kind of like very cerebral, um, almost like mathematical equation, that kind of thinking. No, that's where I'm stupid beyond belief. So I mean, I recognize what my weaknesses are and my strengths are. I create stuff and I love it when I create stuff and I have no idea. And that's why I say we're all hooked up to something larger than ourselves, and especially artists. And I mean Van Gogh and everyone. Like you're creating things out of the pit of your stomach, or you're creating things out of some terrible pain, or you're creating things because you're compelled to create it. You don't have to understand why you're creating it. Like, and that's where that intuition thing comes in. It's like you're almost tapped in. It's like, when you live in a house, you have electrical outlets. So it's like you're plugged in to an electrical outlet. But that's all you've done. You don't understand how the electricity works in the wall. You don't understand how that lamp is turned on. You don't understand like how the electrical system works, and yet you're able to plug in. And so I think that in that respect, and I'm not discounting people that plan stuff, but you're a lot like that too. I mean, you sort of have a funny combination, I think, of both planning and then doing it. Like I've seen you paint over things, I've seen you change your mind, and it's like that intuition, I think, is really, I mean, I think it's high intelligence in a way. It's a form of intelligence that's often overlooked. I will defend a guy like Basquiat only because, um, you know, I just thought he brought a lot to the party. He was a young guy. He came from that family with his poor mom being in mental hospitals and stuff. I mean, obviously, he grew up with a mother who was emotionally, tortured. We don't know what happened to his mom, but he probably had a very unhappy childhood, And then, he lived on the street for a while in Manhattan, but he came from kind of an okay middle class. I think his dad had a pretty good job, family in Queens or Brooklyn, and they weren't like impoverished. It wasn't like he was you know, this poor black kid from like 190th Street. No, they had like an okay house, and his dad had an okay job. But I think through his mother and all that stuff that happened, he was tortured, and he painted that. Well, what's sad is that he got completely exploited. And when you're young, really all you care about, I mean, is outrunning your demons. Like in your middle life, usually the demons sort of catch up to you. But when you're in your late teens and all through your 20s, you're just kind of interested, I think. I mean, this is just my take on it, is that you want to outrun your demons. And whatever it takes to outrun your demons, you'll do it. And I think that Basquiat was trying to outrun his demons. And he was getting successful, and he's having, sex with every gorgeous girl in Manhattan, and he's like now an artist superstar. And they plucked him and chose him and promoted him. You know, he was perfect. He was a handsome, Rasta kind of black guy. And I guess, like, there's never been really another, Warhol, and then Basquiat. Well, all those guys in the early 80s, and then Basquiat was a part of that. But there's no romantic hero in 30 or 40 years of modern art, contemporary art.
Yeah, he did. He did really manage to capture that feeling of the bohemian, and he lived it in a real way. And when I think about Warhol, there is a poem by Eliot, uh, the proof rock poem that starts off with the line, "Let us go, you and I, when the evening is spread across the sky like a patient etherized upon a table." And I think Warhol captures for me that feeling. When I think of Basquiat, it's the opposite. It's sort of like an explosion going off in the atmosphere, right? That kind of feeling, right? Rather than Warhol was sort of like an etherized patient on a table, right? It's that sort of feeling between the two. Interesting, they met up and tried to do things. But what makes me quite interested in Basquiat isn't so much that kind of loosey-goosey work, which goes back to the data artists and the early
That's cool.
sort of expressionist work that was happening. It's that I think he injected this element of actually caring about something. His art represented something that reflected this inner a compulsion almost to let people know you can't be complacent about things. It's like he cared, right? I think that, and people try to sort of create that in some way. Sometimes you see certain artists, and I don't believe you need to be a down and out bohemian to have this quality. I think you can have it, you can be like whoever you want to be and have this element, right? And I think this is what his originality is for me, actually, quite frankly. And originality is that part of us that gives us hope for things to be different, especially if they're not working, right? Especially if they're not working. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Things aren't working. I mean, I don't have to tell you this in a general sense. You and I are a form of resistance to everything that's not working through our originality, which is based on caring. It's not based on you being some, I don't know, give me an example. I can't think of, like, if you're a Velasquez, if you were living 500 years ago, you would be working like fucking Velasquez, right? It's like people make a mistake of associating a mark that has to be a certain way. But this age is unheard of. Like, we live in an age that's never happened before. We're in the age of fission. We've never had thousands of exotic isotopes that never existed in the rest of the fucking cosmos. So what kind of art do we make based on that idea, right? And the depravity, what you understand, the level of depravity in humanity has escalated to such an extent that how do we recapture something? How do we get something back for humanity? I mean, if there's any reason for us to take another breath as painters, artists, filmmakers, whatever you're doing, we want to inject something into this experience that gets it all working again.
Yeah, but who are we doing that for?
I'm doing it for you.
I know, no. No, but when we say we wanna when we say we wanna do that for people, or we wanna do that for not the art world, but enlighten humanity or whatever. It's like, I think, you know what? I think that a lot of things have been overlooked, and I think now people are starting to look at things like directed energies. If everyone's got an iPhone, if there's a cell tower, and there's a Gwen tower, and there's all this communication, there's a scalar wave running through every fucking thing in any small city, medium city, large city, whatever. It's like we're all under some form of mind control. Like, I got targeted, but I mean, aside from that, I think we're all being targeted.
We're all being, well, you're talking about an extreme
massive scale,
right?
And that's why the art world is dead.
Totally.
Totally
dead.
Dead.
Totally.
How can you make art
Oblivious.
if you're a zombie? I mean, honestly, you can make zombie art, but what other art? And if you've got Luciferians running the museums, I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's not our venue, obviously. Yeah.
Tom Ackerman in the door? Of course not.
Right.
They're not going to let me in the door.
Right.
And I used to be kind of a hip, kind of trendy guy in their eyes, so I'd trick them a bit. But there's no tricks anymore. They know, I'm deadly and I'm the enemy. And Basquiat they let in because he did have a heartbeat, but he was young. He wanted to screw his models. He wanted to stay stoned on heroin, and
he kind of fit into their system somehow, right? He fit into their kind of perception.
Kind of fit into their system.
Yeah, we don't
so
fit
they
in.
Sort of, no, we're not a part of that, man. We're not tricked. We won't do it. We're done. We're not going to let Larry Gagosian sell a painting where we you know what I mean? We're not on board with that shit. We're just not on board.
It doesn't work. I mean, there's a point at which you kind of whatever. All right, it's like people say, what is my aspiration in life? So when you're younger, you're saying get laid and make money or something. I don't know
Yeah,
what the
I went through
yeah,
that. I'm guilty of that too, right?
yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm young. I want to get laid. I want to have fun. I want to, you know, go to rock concerts, hang out with Jimmy Page backstage. Like all this is great.
I
I
wonder,
have no
I
idea
wonder,
what's going.
Stephen, when you think back on that, and I'm trying to think back, I was a late bloomer as a human being. I didn't develop a conscience until quite way on. But how we get introduced to a certain way of thinking, like a world view. What is our world view? Where does that come from, right? How do we establish a meaningful world view in the sense that we absorb something that actually works for us, that doesn't sort of get us to a point where we're an empty vessel, continuously having to fill ourselves with shit from outside because nothing is living inside, right? So as when we're younger, we're just filling in, right? It's like always going in. And then at a certain point, there's the point at which we say, if we're normal, like whether you're 15 or 20 or 40 or I don't care what age, that's it.
You're smart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You gotta
that's
start
a good
putting out,
point.
right? Rather than just taking in,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's pretty accurate.
I mean, that's what, and I think people get, when you talk about your TI community, there is probably a connection to that concept that as you begin to be generous and want to give, you're going to be hammered. You're going to be
Yeah,
hammered.
yeah.
I think so.
Especially if you're a focal guy or whatever in any kind of like entertainment world or yeah, I mean, yeah. Nowadays, you're the enemy. I mean, they don't need you. I think Basquiat, they didn't need him long. Now they killed him off at 27, 28, or he killed himself by then. Like that's pretty young. 27, 28. Jeez. I mean,
It is. It's part of that. It's part of that group for some reason. I don't know what those numbers mean. I think
and it's so romantic too. It's like how fabulous that he did all this work and then died. Well, most of his work has to be repaired. He has like, LePage's glue sticking paper to canvas, and it's all falling apart in museums. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't building his stuff to last, right?
You see, I believe that really we're very unique, Stephen, in the sense that what you mentioned about the art now is focused on some kind of expression that, like people walking around with their iPhones, like they bump into each other, right? They're on the street bumping into each other. And I think the art that really works is something that detaches us from ourselves rather than makes us somehow connected, right? Like this disconnected feeling. And if you and I mean, we don't hang out with too many. I don't know about you, but I don't hang out with hardly anybody anymore because I can't take it. Honestly, I can't take it. Like if I'm in a conversation and I don't have the satisfaction of some kind of recognition of what it is that's really important at any given time. I mean, you have an understanding of what's important every day. We struggle, we try to stay alive and do what we have to do, but we know there's something bigger than us that's important, right? So how can I
Yeah.
be in a fucking conversation with someone who's talking about some irrelevant economic development or some other shit going on? I can't take it. I honestly can't take it. I want to talk about the nuts and bolts of what makes us work, why we're here in the first place, right?
No, I get it.
And that's the art. That's the art you make. Your films, your art is about talking something that matters because you care. And that's originality. That's fucking originality. This is like brilliant because it's gone from the general perception. The worldview now has nothing to do with caring anymore. It has to do with filling the void. Fill the void, fill the void, fill the void, fill the void.
No, I think I think there's lots of reasons that I believe that has absolutely been intentionally like planned. I mean, this has been a plan in motion for many, many years. This is called mind
Mm-hmm.
control. This is not new,
Yeah.
man. Like hive mentality, hive mind.
Is it worse now? Is it worse now than
Same.
in the 60s or 70s? Is it worse?
Way worse. They perfected it. These guys are, I hate to admit it, but these evil bastards are geniuses, man. They have studied this stuff. It goes back to eugenics. Eugenics preceded Nazism. It started in America, in Yale and Harvard. So everyone thinks, oh, eugenics, that was all Hitler and his gang. No, it wasn't. Started in America, started in Tavistock, started with the Fabian Society in England. Like this isn't new stuff. They've been planning for a long time how to control how the masses think. So when you and I get frustrated when we look around and we see how the average person, I'm always amazed how the average person actually doesn't really fucking care about very much. That's why cat videos are so popular.
10
I
million
mean,
views on a dog or cat video. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fucking cat.
Yeah.
Do you realize kids are getting tortured? Do you realize children are being sexually abused and murdered? But that cat gives them a chance to go, oh, it's
The
like,
ah moment.
it gives them an excuse to have some feelings about something.
What
The little cat they can care about. They can't care about the little kid in Serbia or Libya or Iraq or they can't care about that kid because that actually means they have to somehow participate in like learning about it. So that's like no, I can't participate in this. I can't look into this. I can't accept this. But the little cat thing that's cute and fuzzy, that's fine.
So now what you're presenting in this, like, if I'm sitting and shooting the shit with you on this stuff, I mean, we're primarily artists. We're not like uh, we're very different from people in the sense that what we do is what we do because in a way we don't have a choice, right? You didn't really. I mean, you can say no, I'm not going to do this, but you're going to feel really shitty if somehow you don't feel this release on some level, right? And different people have different calling. I believe in this, that everybody has a calling on some level. And we choose to either accept that or deny it. And if we deny it, we're going to be unhappy. If we choose it, we may not have an easy life, but we're going to be a hell of a lot happier than not having chosen. I think that's, whatever we commiserate about, or sometimes you talk to me and you're like really fucking depressed about a situation. The trade off is, now I'm not trying to pep talk you, but I know this is a fact that I see people around me who have succeeded. And I'm talking to you about success in the sense that they believe they have accepted a worldview from outside that works for them. Never happens. Never happens. You do not accept a worldview from someone else, like anybody. I don't care who it is, whether it's a Swami or whether it's Kissinger. I don't care. It doesn't work. You got to do it from yourself, right? So no matter how, when we get down about this, I think about this sometimes, that we have a calling. And the longer people watch the cat videos that keep them off that notion, that understanding to deal with the nuts and bolts, the nitty gritty of something, it's going to be a fucking empty life. And I don't want to bludgeon people anymore with all this shit either, by the way, because it
Yeah, I
doesn't
know.
work.
I know.
It doesn't work, Stephen, for me to say, oh, you fuckers, you're so stupid, you stupid sheep. I hate that in YouTube now and all the stuff, that alternate thing, trying to bludgeon people into submission to the way I think. No, don't do anything. Don't do anything, but at least come to some recognition in oneself. What time we're living in. And that's what you
Or
and I are
recognize
trying to do.
or recognize what the disease is. If you can recognize that, I mean, Tesla 100 years ago had all this advanced technology he was working
Yeah,
on.
he was amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so you think they just closed the door and never like, and all the shit they stole from Tesla? Oh yeah, no, they never continued with any of Tesla's stuff. All the stuff that Tesla was working on, nope, they just stuck it in like, cardboard
He was
boxes,
an
and
idiot.
it's
Yeah, it doesn't
you know,
work.
it's sitting in Long Island in some guy's basement now.
Of
No,
course.
they kept developing his stuff.
Right.
And his stuff dealt with the hive mind as well and all these kind of things. But I think he was coming from a good place. But if you're right, I mean, if people are operating on this hive mind, like
Collective, the
the
collective, somehow, the collective.
yeah, they don't know that they're operating from that place,
Yeah, they're
though.
in the.
So when you and I chastise these people and yell and scream and
Doesn't
stuff,
work.
it doesn't work, man, because it doesn't make them in any way understand. All it makes them do is this. That guy's fucking nuts. Those people are crazy. They don't see, what we're upset over, right? I mean, we're seeing this all through America now with the ritual child abuse, the pedophilia, and you see people doing this, right? They can't deal with it. They can't take it, right? And now we've got the clash of the titans going on in America. I mean, it's hilarious, really, but most people that have been, indoctrinated into this hive mind, and it's got to do with Gwen towers, cell towers, your cell, like, like these guys have perfected this shit. The fact that you and I can think for ourselves to a certain degree, I think that's fucking monumental. I mean,
Or
wow.
maybe just
Like the
mental.
fact that there's
Sometimes
a
I.
couple of artists that actually can think for themselves, that's fucking amazing, man. Like, wow.
Yeah.
And what's really amazing is this incredible disaster that we're living in right now. Well, of course, it's not reflected in museums. It's not reflected in what you see out there. It's never going to get any exposure. I mean, the fact that Basquiat slipped stuff in and Warhol slipped stuff in, that was kind of the end of it, man. I mean, we died in 1983 or something, or 85, or whatever it was. I mean, this whole thing just collapsed on itself. It's like yeah, and they've taken over the hive mind. So, yeah, for us to berate and yell and scream and point fingers, you're idiots and stuff. Well, it's not their fault, like, and they've got a house in the suburbs, they've got an SUV. They think they've bought into this really channeled vision of what success is.
But you come from an industry, the Hollywood industry, that captured that idea in a lot of films about people acting. Well, the archetypal film is The Matrix, where we're kind of caught, not kind of, we are actually literally caught within this framework that is not of our doing. It's
I think
imposed.
so.
It's imposed, and I think that industry has become so successful because it propagated itself in their own vision, meaning that not only do they produce films that expose this, but they actually propagate it. So here we are. We're trying to dismantle something, right? We are trying to dismantle something here. That's what I believe. That's our originality, actually. I mean, on a certain level. We're attempting to dismantle something, not propagate. So the Hollywood guys, like the Winoski brothers, is that their name? The Matrix boys, whoever they were.
Yeah.
I think they're probably the most successful in terms of articulating this dilemma that you've just pointed out. The hive, like that idea of being stuck as well. It's quite sinister, actually. Come on, those people are hooked up. They're the battery for the computers, right? They're in the on some level. We're just acting as the battery for the AI.
Yes,
right?
man.
Right?
I got a theory on that. I totally agree with that, Tom.
So
I think that we are the batteries.
right.
And transhumanism is all about replicating, obviously humans, taking humans, merging you with an AI, with
Elon Musk now, he's doing it.
But they're trying to get rid of that human component that they don't want, which is the human soul.
That caring part of us that actually feels.
Right.
Yes.
So why would you ever trust that group that wants to deny you your right to actually feel and experience what it is to be a
And now
human?
you're
What
talking French.
I wouldn't do that to a lion in the in the outback. I wouldn't do that to a bear in the woods. I may not like the bear being aggressive when it comes to the village to get food out of the garbage cans, but I'm certainly not going to denounce or oh, that bear, like that bear's a bear. I want that bear to be a bear. I think that, I feel like the same way about humans. It's like we're not all perfect. We do bad things sometimes. We yell, we scream, whatever. But it's like, would I rather have this computer generated version of a human? No, I want a human. I want a human with all its faults. I want a human that cares. I want a human that gets mad. I want all those
I
components
like
to the
soft
human.
tissue.
I don't want the
I
AI.
like soft tissue.
You like
I
soft
really
tissue.
like soft tissue. Yeah, especially, certain soft tissue. I'm very attracted to soft tissue. So with an
But
AI,
what
I kind of see very hard edges. I don't get a lot of soft tissue out of AI feeling.
No, there's no soft
No,
tissue.
no, not at all.
It's devoid of feeling, and that's they've shot themselves in the foot. So you and I talk about this art thing, and it's no joke. I mean, the last 30 years, it's pretty much been dead. I mean,
Totally.
honestly, come
Totally.
on,
Yes,
nothing's
totally.
gone on.
Totally.
I don't even know if it's ever been this bad. It might be 40 years almost now. It's finished,
I had
man.
a curator. I had a curator come to the studio who admitted to me that there have been no real art movements in the last 50 years, except
Right.
what they call now. I didn't know this name. It was called meta modern. I don't know if you've come across that. Meta modern. Have you come across that? They're
No.
conjuring this one up, right? They're trying to recreate themselves by coming up with something that might stick. It's like I say, you throw a noodle on the ceiling that may stick. So meta modern is the last noodle that's been flicked up on the top. So I'm getting like I'm pulling out paintings, and all she's thinking meta modern. So in order for you and I to have any kind of conversation with these, well, it's virtually impossible because they're just collecting their paycheck and doing whatever they're doing. But you and I think, with a few other people, are in a unique position now. This is how I look at it, Stephen. I'm not going to be depressed about this and blame anybody. What I'm thinking is we're in a unique position. Whether or not we'll succeed in the bigger world, I can't say. But I think we're in a position now because the slate is blank. The slate is blank. That's what I say. We have an opportunity to create a narrative. We're still young enough to use our experience, our abilities, our creative force to create the narrative rather than always being in their fucking headlights. We're always complaining and criticizing the bastards, right? We're in a position to actually create a narrative. I truly believe this. Whether or not people pay attention, I mean, how do you deal with this horse at the trough? I'm saying that you and I are an example. You're an example to me, and hopefully vice versa, and other people like you and me that will create the narrative, the movement, the thing that's actually going to create what? Inspire people to want to be associated with you and me, right? That feeling. And maybe it's one at a time.
Yeah, maybe it's very
Yeah.
small in increments,
Like what you
right?
like what you were talking about to me yesterday about, promoting our work, right? That idea. It's like
Yeah.
ground level. Mind you, that's a great idea because a lot of people are going to see it.
Well, I hate to bring the Bible into it, but I think Jesus or somebody said at one point that, like, if you affect one person's life, it's worth it. Like your life is worth it, right? And I have a tendency to want to affect, like,
Right.
thousands or change everything like immediately, right? It doesn't happen like that. It might just be really incremental and very small steps. It's frustrating as hell, but maybe that is the way it goes. In history does sort of prove to us that, like, you know, guys like Van Gogh weren't setting out to like change everything. He's just trying to stay true to himself on his little
But he
path,
affected
right?
us big time.
Shit, painting is using his fucking yellow and his
He
blue and
affected
stuff
us
and
big time. A lot of artists.
culture.
Yeah, big time.
Absolutely.
So
Because of the feelings behind it. It's the feeling. It's that, it's not the color yellow per se. Anyone can, you know, mix some
oh
yellow
yeah,
together and paint.
yeah.
Come on, it's not the
That's
yellow.
right. Just
It's
squeeze
the
it out of a
way
tube and
the
you're Van Gogh. That's right. Yeah.
it's the way it was painted, right?
Yes. And the colors together, the whole feeling, the stroke, the mark, everything became drawing and color. Van Gogh, actually, you know, this is one thing I like about de Kooning because he kind of, uh, for me, he no longer was dealing with a line on a surface. He was dealing with a wide brush, right? He would use really wide brushes. So he would make a stroke and it would become not just a line, but it was a color field, like it was a field, right? It wasn't just one line. So he kind of broke all that kind of thing up. It started with Cezanne, and you know, Vincent had that feeling in his brushstrokes. They were very wide. They weren't designating like a little line around the eyeball. The eyeball itself could be just a stroke, right?
Yeah. Or a dash or something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It was no longer sort of submitting to a notion of line. Like when you think of drawing, you think in terms of taking a pencil and maybe making a thin line, right? But the notion that was dismantled completely was that you can't draw unless it looks like a pencil mark or something, right? That's not it at all. It transcended what we had assumed
Yeah.
before. It was a breakthrough. It was brilliant. It was fabulous, right?
Yeah. Anyway, what time is it now? I guess I should
Yeah,
go.
well,
You
I don't
know.
know. We've covered have we covered everything?
I don't know, but if we haven't, we'll come back. No one watches our videos anyway, so it's
Yeah, right. Well,
you
come
know.
on. You know what? I've had experiences where I'd have like after a day 276 views, and then the next day it would be down to 63.
I know.
So
No, no. This is proven though. This is actually even Dr. Catherine Horton talks about it. She's like, don't be such like she, you know, she said something like, "Oh, don't be so silly or don't be so ignorant." Of course, YouTube is controlled. Of course, your views are controlled. Like, you probably have so. Oh, she was talking to this guy in England that interviewed her. She's like, you probably have so many more views. You have so much of a bigger impact than you
yeah,
realize. They try to defeat your spirit because they show that you've only had 100 views, 1,000 views, whatever. Well, of course they do
how do
that.
they figure that out?
They don't want you to know that people actually
I wonder how
care.
they figure that out. How maybe through their algorithms, if you say like care in a video, maybe that's flagging the video.
Yeah, that knocks it down.
Right.
Yeah, maybe you're knocked
There are
down.
probably certain keywords, I guess, how that whole thing works, right?
I don't
The
know.
kind of,
And there's names involved, like my name doesn't do well. You know,
but
I've seen videos go down. Yeah,
but
same as
you
you.
and I, what I want to tell you, and it's sort of like the inspiration for me with you is that I see you as someone who has the ability to actually change consciousness in a very specific way. I think this is in art history something that, like, when I talk about there is no longer a line and a color plane, it's all the same. It's like changing a perception of who we are through the work we do, and we can create that narrative. Whether or not people join us or watch it or see it or buy the work or want to see it, it's not up to you and me. I'm not a promoter. But I think we have an opportunity to change the narrative rather than being in their fucking headlights all the time, dodging their goddamn bullets every time. Everybody's dodging their bullets. We can actually make the work that changes that direction in some way. Whether or not in my lifetime, your lifetime, we see an effect, but I'm convinced of this, Stephen. That's what gives me hope.
We're still having to fight this hive mind
But
mentality.
what's our approach,
You
right?
still have to accept and realize that there is mind control programs in
Right.
place, and that people are being
Like
mass
external
controlled.
influences, like we're being externally targeted with this shit, like whether it's through advertisement or whether it's through EM waves and all that kind of thing, right?
That's right,
I
man.
know the physical part.
Absolutely. There is a reality to
Yeah.
that.
That's
That's where the uncaring thing scares me so bad. That's what gets you too. It's like, how can people not care? Like, it's always the same. How can people not care? Like, how can people not care? It's one of the great, like, dilemmas, right? How can people not care?
and our only
And how
and our only strategy, like I say, we can't force this on anyone. It's like just by example, just to live the life you live with.
maybe,
Huh?
maybe,
Well, that's what I'm
maybe
thinking.
that's it.
Unless you have a better idea, I haven't had an
No, I think
epiphany.
it is. We lead by example.
Ultimately,
Fuck it.
like the program we're going to be working on together is to introduce people to looking at what we do in a way they may not have looked at before, right? To give that sort of opening to someone. And then who
That's right.
knows, especially among the, 20, late 20 and the 30s kind of people that still have a heart beating in some way. They're not on their bloody shit thing all the time, and that they're
Yeah.
curious, right? The curiosity, that part of it.
And I meet people like that, and so do you,
Yeah, we
right?
do.
They see your paintings and they feel your painting, and they need to have your painting in their room. Like they need that. I mean, it does happen. It still does
I hope
happen.
so.
Just, oh no, man, it still does. I mean, it does. Anyway, I'm
All
gonna
right,
sign off. Yeah,
you can sign off.
I look fabulous today. I had a little bit of facial.
Yeah, I think it's tops. The shirt does it for me today. I'm still a little disturbed by all the symbols because it's a bit too busy. It looks sort of like hieroglyphs of some kind. You're kind of communicating
Yeah.
some secret message.
Maybe
Yeah, let me see some tit,
yeah.
let me see a bit of.
Maybe some CIA guy broke in and stuck it in my drawer.
Did you?
But I like it
You,
anyway. I don't
you
care.
never saw that shirt before yesterday. It just sort of appeared in your drawer.
Yeah. Kind of thing. A couple of months ago it showed up and I started wearing it. I have no idea who it belongs
yeah,
to.
you just actually ended up wearing a shirt that you have no clue where it came
Yeah,
from.
geez, look, this looks kind of
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
I'm still seeing a lot of symbols there, so I don't know. I'm not sure whether or not I'd wear it, but anyway, I
All
like
right,
your
I
hair
like.
today, and
All
yeah,
right.
all around, I like how you look today. You're feeling better too today, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and we're gonna do this thing, aren't we?
Yes, we
Okay,
are.
that's a good note to leave it on.
Yes, we are, man. All
Pleasure
right.
talking to you, buddy.
Bye, man.